Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. 6 unexpected players earning loads of reps at Steelers training camp. The Pittsburgh Steelers wrapped up their padless practices, and fans are excited to see the gloves come off as they gear up for full contact at Steelers training camp this week. We've learned a lot about this team in the early going. Though it's hard to gauge individual performances when no contact is permitted, we can track which players are seeing the most action and where they fall in the pecking order compared to their peers. Some players we thought we would see plenty of early in the preseason have been quiet, while others have risen to the occasion and have grabbed the attention of Pittsburgh's media. Not all of these players will remain in the driver's seat to significant snaps by the end of the preseason, but here are 6 players who have earned loads of reps during the first week of Steelers training camp. Justin Fields has seen a lion's share of the action at Steelers camp by default. While Russell Wilson is sidelined with a calf issue, Fields has been the sole first-team quarterback. His performance has been up and down with highlight reel moments and a few careless decisions mixed in. Fields is taking advantage of these reps as a time to learn the playbook and develop camaraderie with the starting unit. Wilson is expected to return to slowly ease his way onto the practice field. Until then, Fields has been soaking up the snaps at the quarterback position. One of the biggest surprises early at Steelers training camp is Kalon Barnes. The 2022 7th-round pick of the Carolina Panthers bounced around practice squads over the past 2 seasons. Now he's firmly running with the second-team defense. When Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Rush leave the field, it is Barnes and Darius Rush who replace them. This is a surprise to many fans who believed that Corey Trice Jr. would be one of the primary backup boundary cornerbacks in 2024. There is time for this to change, but Barnes, who ran a 4.23 at the 2022 NFL Combine, has clearly caught the attention of the coaching staff. Fans were interested to see which running backs would put up the biggest fight for a roster spot behind Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, and Cordarrelle Patterson. With Patterson beginning training camp on the NFI list, it has been La'Mical Perine who has taken advantage. Unlike the other backup running backs jousting for positioning, Perine has the advantage of having played in 17 games over the past 3 seasons. If the Steelers keep a 4th running back in 2024, he's the early frontrunner for the job. We knew the Steelers had a lack of security at the wide receiver position after trading Deontay Johnson, but we didn't know which players would step up in his absence. So far, Calvin Austin III has been making the most of his opportunities. Austin has been running primarily with the first-team offense, oftentimes alongside wide receivers George Pickens and Van Jefferson. Austin has speed that kills, and he's been praised routinely by QB Russell Wilson wide receivers coach Zach Azzanni since the start of off-season workouts. Steelers lucky Russell Wilson only injured calf on big mistake of a conditioning test, Fittipaldo says. The Pittsburgh Steelers changed their conditioning staff this year and it nearly cost them Russell Wilson. The veteran quarterback suffered a calf injury during a conditioning test, and it has kept him out of 4 practices. He has yet to participate meaningfully on the field in training camp, because he had to push a blocking sled. One wonders if this incident caused an immediate reconsideration of the Steelers' methods, as Ray Fittipaldo suggests. One can reasonably say that it's probably not useful to know how well Russell Wilson can push a blocking sled. I'm guessing it's not gonna happen again, Fittipaldo said on KDKA's number 1 Cochrane Sports Showdown on Sunday. I think you'll see offensive linemen pushing sleds in the future, but I don't think you'll see quarterbacks do it. Big mistake. They're lucky it was only a calf strain. For one reason or another, the Steelers decided to replace longtime strength and conditioning coach Marcel Pastor and his staff this year. They replaced him with Phil Matus, who made Russell Wilson pushing a blocking sled part of their conditioning routine. He came from Boston College. It's different, Fittipaldo said. Obviously, Wilson wasn't the only person pushing the blocking sled, but conditioning tests specific to position groups sounds like a pretty reasonable way to go. Quarterbacks don't have to block very often, certainly not from a three-point stance, so just don't do that. Now, that doesn't mean that Wilson should be incapable of pushing a blocking sled or anything like that. It's a fine workout, if my memories of Pee Wee football serve me well. But there's a reason Fittipaldo, a former offensive lineman himself, is calling this out as dumb. And to his point, the Steelers are lucky that Wilson didn't suffer a more serious injury, assuming that he won't. Calf injuries can linger, as the Cincinnati Bengals found out with Joe Burrow last year. But because he injured himself pushing a blocking sled, he has missed 4 days of practice with a new team. No, that won't be the reason the Steelers come short of the Super Bowl this year, but I haven't found anybody willing to justify this particular aspect of their new conditioning test. Even the Ravens, who had a notoriously difficult test, made changes to their methods. I don't think Lamar Jackson is pushing any sleds out there. There will be growing pains when a team switches strength and conditioning staffs, for obvious reasons. There's a good chance you're significantly changing the structure of how you manage your players, after all. They even adjusted when they conduct their training camp practices. It's just unfortunate that one of those growing pains was Russell Wilson's calf, which probably has an X account already. Pittsburgh Steelers QB Russell Wilson in danger of being cut after calf injury, insider. Justin Fields had his best chance to earn the Pittsburgh Steelers QB1 job last week when Russell Wilson missed the start of training camp due to a calf injury. The calf injury could cost Wilson more than the starting job. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said Wilson was in the pole position this spring to win the QB1 job. Last week, he said nothing had changed since OTAs. According to Dan Graziano of ESPN, Wilson outplayed Fields this spring. Everything I've heard on this for the past month or so has been that Wilson looked better in OTAs and minicamp. He entered training camp as the clear leader in the competition. Wilson had most of the first-team reps this spring. Fields now has a chance to show what he can do with the first team. Per Mark Kaboly of The Athletic, Fields has been up and down at practice and training camp. Fields took the majority of the snaps Thursday and pretty much duplicated what we saw at OTAs and minicamp a few months back. At times he looked like a first-round pick, and at times he looked like a guy who is still trying to find his way with accuracy and consistency. Graziano thinks Fields could overtake Wilson for the starting spot soon in training camp. He suggested the Steelers could cut Wilson from the 53-man roster before Week 1. It's a lot more of a coin flip than most think, and I believe that part of the reason the Steelers have set Wilson up as the leader in the competition is because they believe that's the best way to manage him. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Fields will show enough through camp to catch him and claim the Week 1 starting spot. I know most people disagree, and I am fully prepared to be wrong. But the vibes didn't start off great for Wilson, and I just think the Steelers are going to be too tempted by Fields' upside once they see them both out there. The question then would become whether Wilson is on the team at all. Cutting Wilson before Week 1 would be a drastic move from the Steelers' front office. They have Wilson signed to the veteran minimum this season, and one would think having a veteran backup like Wilson would be helpful if they start Fields, a quarterback who suffered a long list of injuries during his first 3 seasons with the Chicago Bears. However, Wilson appeared to win over the locker room this spring. The front office might have to cut Wilson to keep the team united if Wilson isn't happy being Fields' backup. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Russell Wilson? Leave your opinion in the comments.